Hello and welcome to another Warhammer 40k Militarm Tempestus Tactics video. We're doing a bit of back and forth between list reviews, guard videos and Tempestus, but the more I've been thinking about it, the more I see Militarm Tempestus as an extension of the Imperial Guard, but an army in their own right. However, we're all humans together, eh? So today's video is going to be a bit more specific than the last Scion video, which was just sort of general thoughts and ideas on how the army works. And today we're going to drill down into squad loadouts. Okay, because it's very important to get the right weapons on your squads. And that's true for any Warhammer army. But for one as elite and specialised as the Tempestus Scions, they're more elite than the Eldar, they're more elite than the Space Marines, they're more elite than the Dark Eldar and the Tau. These guys really are the definition of an elite commando SAS Delta Force style army. Okay, they really, really are. The more I've been looking into them, the more it's made me want to play them. But you know, as you know, the Games Workshop down the road from me, it's selling those start collecting sets. You get 50% off basically. It's, you know, it's tempting me. Could be drawn towards a little 1,000-point Scion army. I love them little armies that I can bring together thanks to the Allies Matrix and make bigger armies out of. But anyway, like I said, so I've been tempted towards Scions. I've been doing a bit of research into it, and I've noticed there's some common mistakes that I've seen when looking at Scion armies out there on YouTube or on forums or whatever. There's just some common mistakes that seem to get made. And so I've especially with squad loadouts, specifically squad loadouts. So that's something that I want to address today. So, as I've said numerous times, as you know from watching these videos, the Scions are an elite force. And by that definition, it means they are very specialised. They should be very specialised. And every squad in your army should have a specific role. And the number one mistake that I see made with these guys is people mixing and matching the loadouts in the squad. So you might see a squad that's rocking like a plasma gun and a hotshot volley gun, or a melter gun and a hotshot volley gun, for example, or a melter gun. To a certain extent, it's not as bad a melter gun and a plasma gun, but I'll see a lot of people mixing and matching weapon loadouts in these units, and their rationalization for this is, well, my squads have got to be able to deal with anything. They haven't got backup from other units in the army, so each squad's got to be able to act on its own. And this just makes me just like cry out with frustration, because what you're doing there is taking a super elite specialized army and trying to generalize it. How the Scions work, how the Stormtroopers work, is each squad has a specific and important mission objective. And it's their one job to get that objective completed. One way or another, they've got to get that job done. And there's another, so for example, you might have an anti-tank Scion squad, and it's their job to make sure that the tank or the transport goes pop. And then you've got another squad whose specific job is clearing out objectives and taking ground from enemy infantry, from enemy backfield campers. For example, if someone's got like a couple of squads of fire warriors as attacks, and that's what they, you know, you want something that can clear those guys out. So, but if you have a squad which has got one melter gun, for example, and then one flamer, your justification is it can handle anything. My argument right back at you is it can't handle anything, because it can't handle tanks effectively enough because you've got that single melter gun, and it can't handle infantry enough because you've got that single flamer. So it's not able to do either job properly, and therefore it's useless. That is my argument to you. Okay? So, taking that into consideration, when it comes to arming your Scion squads, because what you've got to remember is, you know, if you're taking a CAD, you've only got access to 6 squads, but don't forget you've got your 2 command squads. That comes up to 8 squads, and then you can start adding in formation, so you can have lots and lots of squads. So the initial issue with Scions only having access to individual squads of stormtroopers instead of platoons of them like the Imperial Guard, that's not really an issue, because hell, you could ally in a guard platoon, a guard scion platoon. You could take an allied detachment, take a Lord Commissar squad of veterans. Veterans are like pseudo fucking Stormies, and then you could take a whole platoon of scions if you wanted to. So there's no real worry about only having a limited selection of scion squads, you know, in your standard CAD, because you can either take 2 CADs, or CAD and a formation, or CAD and allies. So it's not really an issue. So taking that into account, it's perfectly viable. In fact, I 100% encourage it that your squads should be specialized, and that is most reflected in their weapon loadouts. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through the different types of scion squad that you can make. Now the first one is the most common one. It's one that many Imperial Guard players are familiar with, not just from 7th edition, but through all the ages. It's the Meltercide squad, the Melter Suicide squad. It's the most simple, so we're going to start with that. You take a bare bones scion squad, you take 5 scions, that's it, and you give them 2 melter guns. That's the core of it. And their job is to deep strike down. They don't need to worry about cover because they've got move through cover. Deep strike as close as they can to enemy tanks and do the nasty on them. That's their job. Now, you can take it a step further. Maybe if you expect them to survive after doing their job, they're not really meant to. They're meant to go in, blow something up, and then your enemy kills them. And if they do anything after the first turn, then that's a bonus. But if you're sort of expecting them to do a bit more, you could add melter bombs onto the sergeant, or even a plasma pistol, because the plasma pistol is strength 7, and it's not really much of an issue in a scion army. I know a lot of people say, well, if it overheats and kills the guy, then that's a big issue. But if you're taking a suicide squad, these men are already marked for death, so there's not too much issue in giving them a plasma pistol, because it might make the difference between chipping that last hull point off or not doing so, and the tank gets to rampage around. You'd be kicking yourself if for 15 points you could have blown that tank up. But the plasma pistol and the melter bombs are optional, but you have to take the double melter gun. Everything's going to be double melter gun or double something. You've got to take the 2 of the same. That's the key. The next most common scion squad is the plasma scion squad, Plasmacide. Again, standard procedure. Plasma scion squad, 5 basic scions, 2 plasma guns in the unit. Again, their job is to deep strike down close to the enemy as possible, preferably monstrous creatures or enemy heavy infantry, and their job is to shoot the shit out of it. Plasma pistol in this squad is almost mandatory because you need as much plasma as possible. And again, these guys are marked for death. The plasma pistol, it allows you to increase the amount of shots you're putting out, I think, by 20%. So you go up from 4 shots to 5 shots. It can make a big difference. It can make a huge difference. You get twin linking orders with your scions. You could drop down, Plasmacide, twin link them, prescience them, preferred enemy them, whatever you want, and that's good. Now, and that they do the job, and they survive potentially from the overheats. Now, it's important to keep both of these suicide squads as 5-man squads, because any additional wounds, any additional guys who pop in there, really it's wasted points. The only time you should be adding extra guys in there is if you honestly don't have anywhere else to spend the points. If you're doing like a huge fuck off, like 2,000 point scion army or something, then that's fine. If you're doing smaller points games with these suicide squads, just keep to the 2 special weapons. You don't need the plasma pistols. Okay? You don't need them. Now, going on to the next kind of squad you have, and this is another, we're going to do sort of deep striking squads first, and then non-deep striking squads second. The next kind of deep striking squad I've thought of, and I've tried it out, and I must say it's surprisingly effective. is the sweep and clear squad. The double flamer squad. Okay, this is where you take a larger unit of scions. 5 isn't really enough for this. I recommend 8 or 10. You go for a big chunky squad, and then you add 2 flamers onto the unit. Their job is to deep strike behind enemy minimum sort of troop units, things that are holding objectives, and their job is to sweep them clear. And they shouldn't have too much issue with this, because most of the time the targets that these guys are going after are soft and easy targets, unlike the Melter and the Plasma side squads, whose job is to go after the biggest, meanest, nastiest motherfucker on the battlefield. These guys pick on the weak units. Their job is to go down behind enemy lines, sweep an objective clear. Now, it's important for them to have 10 men for 2 reasons. 1, they need all the anti-infantry firepower they can get. A lot of tac squads come as standard with 10 guys, and 2 flamers often won't be enough to quite clear that off. But 2 flamers, backed up by 7 rapid-fire hotshot lasguns and a pistol of some variety, will normally do the job. And the second reason is because if these guys are sweeping and clearing objectives, they generally also have to have the staying power to hold the objective. And it's a lot harder to blow away 10 dug in scions, nice 4 up, cover save, 3 up, go to ground, than it is just to kill 5 scions. So you need the extra numbers. Okay? They're sort of the 3 main ones. Now, one scion squad, one weapon which we haven't discussed is the grenade launcher. Okay, now, the grenade launcher, I feel, struggles to find a home in a scion army, because it's not a particularly specialized weapon. It's not bad, but it's not particularly specialized. For deep striking units, I wouldn't recommend the grenade launcher. However, I think in lower points level games, we're talking maybe 500 points to 1,000 points. I think grenade launchers have a place in those points levels, because you need to squeeze every point you can get, and you still need some weapons that are capable of taking out light armor. That's the grenade launcher's niche. But I feel like 2 grenade launchers are never really going to do anything, so it's a tough one. Honestly, unlike an Imperial Guard where I say grenade launchers are awesome, they've just 5 points, strength 6 shot, can't go wrong. I think in the Scion army they're not as useful, but I don't think they'll ever let you down either. I think you could make a cheap anti-transport squad by taking a Scion or Scion command squad with these things in, and maybe deep striking them down, but not entirely certain. And the last gun that I'm going to talk about for the deep striking squads is the Hotshot volley gun. And I'm not going to... It's a unique weapon to the Scions. It's a salvo 2-4, strength 4, AP 3, 24-inch range weapon. So potentially, if you stay still, you can fire out 4 shots, which is really good. However, when you deep strike, you count as moving. So I don't recommend this weapon for deep striking Scion squads. However, we'll come back to it at a later date with ground-based Scion squads, which is what we're going to talk about right now. So, deep striking Scion squads obviously have a role to play, obviously a key important factor for the Scions, right? For the Stormies. Because they allow you to get in amongst your enemy lines, create an alpha strike, and also be a distraction. And if your opponent doesn't deal with them, they're going to keep on rampaging. You can't just have an army of deep strikers, though, because if you do, your army will come in piecemeal, and the enemy will find it relatively easy to kill you. What you need is also some ground assault units. Now, Scions should never, ever, ever foot slog. Ever. A foot slogging Scion is a dead Scion. They will not last very long. So you have to buy a Taurox Prime for them. You have to. Unfortunately, now we can't start deployed inside allied transports, because a good way would used to be to put them in chimeras because they're cheaper than Tauroxes, but different story. So Taurox Primes, we've discussed those already. You want to generally avoid the basic Taurox Prime with the battle cannon and auto cannon, because again, it's a generalist weapon. It's not really, not got a specialized role. However, you want to consider either Dakka Primes with the Hotshot Polygon and the Taurox Gatling Cannon, or the Punchy Primes with the autocannon and the Taurox Missile Launcher. Your squad loadout should reflect which Taurox Prime you're taking. So if you're taking a Dakka Prime, then the squad inside should either be, should generally speaking, be a anti-infantry squad as well, because the point is that the two units support each other. However, the singular exception to this rule is if you're taking a Dakka Prime and inside you have a squad of 5, or I should say a melter gun squad, either command or between 5 and 8 men melter gun squad. Because what you in theory should happen then is your scions get out and melter gun the transport, kill the transport, and the enemy units that spill out get killed by the Dakka Prime. I tend to find that doesn't really work, simply because you have to get so close that for that to be pulled off, that most of the time you're not really gonna, and it's not really gonna, the Torx is gonna die before it gets there, because this fucking vehicle's screaming towards the enemy lines. And then I also find that 2 melter guns aren't often enough to blow up a transport, unfortunately, so it doesn't tend to work. So what I recommend is you have dedicated anti-infantry units, ground assault units, and dedicated anti-tank ground assault units. So what should happen is your Punchy Prime, backed up by maybe a plasma squad. Between them, they've got enough strength 7, strength 8 shooting to take out a transport, and then your Dakka Prime can go to work. Okay, and Dakka and your anti-infantry squad can go to work. That's in theory how it should go down. But I can see some merit for having the Dakka plus melter loadout. When it comes to ground assault units, though, I generally would say have plasma gun squads in them, because plasma gun squads are a nice mid-range unit. They can function nicely around the 24-inch mark. I think this is a place where grenade launchers could be used, because you could have your Dakka Primes getting within 24-inch range, but not too close, because you're not an assault army. And then you get out, you stay within 24 inches, and your scions get out, and they chip in with their firepower. So you've got grenade launchers at 24-inch range. I think that's where grenade launchers could work as mid-range Dakka units. Flamers, not a big fan of having flamer squads in Taurox Primes. I just feel like, again, you've got to get too close. You're just going to lose the prime. You're going to lose the squad. Flamers should be deep struck. Melter guns should be deep struck. And obviously plasma guns, they're at home in either. They can either deep strike and double tap, or long range, more, last a little bit longer, firing just one shot at a time. The last unit, is, as I said we'd come back to it, is the Hotshot Polygon. Now, Hotshot Polygon, a lot of people don't like it, but I think it's a really potentially powerful weapon. I think if you're going for that mid-range combat unit, you could take plasma, but I think you'd be better off taking Hotshot Polygons, because they're cheaper. They're only 10 points, so cheaper than a plasma gun. And what you can do is you can drive up, take some midfield ground, get yourself into, ram yourself into a nice bit of cover, and then get out and set up a fire base. So this works especially well with Scion command squads, where you've got 4 Hotshot Polygons in there, and That's 16 strength 4 AP3 shots. The AP3 is the awesome bit about it. Okay. Now, I want to cover this a little bit more because there's a lot of versatility in the Hotshot Polygon, but it's also, very specialized. And I'll explain that sentence in a second. So what I mean by it's versatile because it can handle any kind of infantry. Okay, it's a specialized anti-infantry weapon, but it can handle any kind of infantry. So unlike weapons like the heavy bolter, which are strength 5, great, but only AP 4, which is bad, that's only really designed for killing light infantry. The Hotshot Polygon can kill almost any infantry because of its AP, which is AP 3. Its strength, which is strength 4, means that it can reliably wound light infantry on 3s and medium to heavy infantry on 4s, which is really good. It's not to be underestimated. It's also fantastic because it has 4 shots, which is great. 4 shots is fantastic. And don't forget, if you have a Scion command squad with 4 of these things in, and you've got something like maybe a Wraith Knight bearing down on you, normally you wouldn't be able to wound that thing because you're only strength 4, you need strength 5, but you could order yourself to have rending, I believe it is, and then suddenly you only need 6s. And then you just go straight through its armor save, which is fantastic. I keep saying fantastic, which is cool when you think about it. Just these hotshot polygons burning through this giant Wraith Knight. I'm not saying it should be a go-to tactic for dealing with the big bullshit Wraith Knight, but they can definitely chip in. Imagine if you've dedicated a couple of plasma squads to it, a couple of punchy primes to it. It's on that last wound, and you think, "Fuck me, please! I just need something that can kill it." Up steps the volley squad. Fires 16 shots. You could have prescience on them via allies. You're going to hit with, roughly 16. I think it's going to be roughly hitting with about 13. Let's say 12 for simplicity. You're going to hit with between 12, and then you can get 2 wounds. 2 wounds, which it's only going to get its 5-up invuln or feel no pain from. If it's got feel, I think it has feel no pain at standard, but there's a good shot. Imagine it's on 1 wound, it's got to take 2 5-up 5-ups. That's the equivalent of 1 4-up save. Bam, you could just kill it. So it's versatile. On the plus side, imagine you've got a big blob of gaunts coming towards you. Shit me. Normally you wouldn't be able to stop that big blob of bullshit coming towards you. But 16 hotshot polygon shots backed up by a Dakar Prime. Hello. That's a big blob of goo now. Same for orcs. Same if you've got a guard squad coming towards you. Big fucking 50-man conscript blob bearing down on you. Just start raking them. With twin-linked fucking hotshot polygons and Dakar Prime. I really like the idea of this fire base of a Scion squad with 2 polygons, a Scion command squad with 4 polygons, and then a Dakar Prime or 2 just fucking sat there. That is anti-infantry. That's two units with 2 dedicated transports, and that's just a hell of a lot of anti-infantry. That would pretty much sort you. So that's sort of it. So we've done. It's a longer video than I expected. We've distinguished between deep strike suicide squads and sweep and clear squads. We've talked about ground assault squads. The different weapon loadouts which should be used. Flamers and melters should really go on drop squads. Plasma guns are happy anywhere. Grenade launchers should go, and volley guns are better suited for ground assault units. There's one thing we haven't covered, which is, and this is very quickly, whether you should take the hotshot pistol or the bolt pistol on your sergeant. Now, I've done a lot of research into this, and the general consensus is you should take the bolt pistol because it's just got that longer range. It's the 12-inch range, which apparently makes all the difference. So I think the fact that it's better to have that extra shot than it is to have the crappy strength 3. Because the thing we haven't really spoken about is the hotshot lasguns themselves, and honestly the hotshot lasguns aren't that great. I know they're AP3, but they're killed by being strength 3. That means most of the time they're wounding things on 5s. So That's why I recommend when you've got squads like plasma squads or squads like melter squads, let the special weapons do the talking. And when you've got anti-infantry squads, that's when your hotshot polygons are okay, because it means, you know, they're wounding things on 4s then most of the time. Like regular lasguns, hotshot lasguns should be seen as a weapon that chips the last wound off when you're firing a single squad, not the weapon that's the main source of your firepower. Okay? The second thing I want to mention is power weapons. So, most of the time, is literally the majority of the time, you don't want to really be bothering with power weapons on your scions, because they're not really gonna do anything, because you are a basic human at the end of the day. You will probably go last, and you don't really, you know, you're only weapon skill 3, you know, so power weapons are kind of meh on scions. However, the one exception to the rule is if you are going to take a sweep and clear squad, a power maul can often be quite useful, because what you do is you flame and shoot. Let's say you've got, you know, someone's got a big blob of, you know, a squad of 20 or 30 guardsmen or something, or cultists or something similar, orc shooter boys sat on a objective. You deep strike down with your 10-man squad. You give them one volley and you kill quite a few of them, but maybe there's still a few around and you're not quite confident enough of taking that objective again. You could then give them another volley, but this time just with your flamers and your pistol, and one guy throwing a grenade, obviously, and then you could charge in and finish them off. I think that's better. I think that's, you know, the power maul then would obviously come into effect. The reason I suggest the power maul over the other weapons is because it gives you the +2 strength, and it's cheaper than taking a power fist. Melter bombs, I think, should only really be taken on melter squads and maybe plasma squads, but I think, you know, not really. Melter bombs are generally a last-ditch effort. Plasma pistols, as we've already said, should be on either melter squads or plasma squads. And the last thing is medipacks, because your scion command squads can take medipacks, and I would say, if you're thinking of setting up a plasma fire base where you take a command squad and you don't deep strike them, you maybe put them in a punchy prime, Torx prime with missile launch autocannon, and then you take your plasma squad as well. And you might want to set up like a midfield fire base. I think maybe then the medic would be useful, because you're expecting to get more than one turn out of your plasma squad. However, that's the only place I would consider it useful. Otherwise, if you're taking like a suicide scion command squad, in that case, I would say fuck off the med pack, because the one single job of a suicide scion command squad is to go down there and to just put out 9 plasma shots at rapid fire range. That's its one job. Speaking of scion command squads, I would treat them as a pimped out regular scion squad. Unlike guard officers, which you rely on them for the chain of command to issue lots of orders, regular scion command squads can only issue one order a turn, and they will 99.9% of the time be issuing that order to themselves. So they should really be treated as a regular scion squad that can take 4 special weapons. That's how they should be treated. And again, they should be specialized. It should be 4 melter guns, 4 hotshot polygons, or 4 plasma guns. I don't think you want to take 4 flamers. I think that'd be a massive waste of their potential. 4 grenade launchers, I could actually interestingly see as being kind of effective on the cheap. Imagine, if you are taking a maybe a 500 point or 750 point scion army, and you need a little bit of anti-tank. You've got a couple of suicide metal squads, but you need a little bit of just cheap anti-tank. I think you would be fine to take 4 grenade launchers. and have them drive around in a Torx Prime and, you know, with missile launcher and an auto cannon and, you know, punch off the last wounds from transports and stuff. I think that could be very effective. But I think, you know, otherwise I would avoid grenade launchers. That last loadout with 4 grenades, that's a theory hammer. That's not tried and tested from my scouring of the internet and my own experience. So we've gone into a lot of detail there. It's a long video, but we've essentially covered all the different kinds of Scion squad that I could possibly think out of. Remember, kids, you've got to specialize those squads. I have seen so many army lists and so many videos of guys taking a plasma gun and a volley gun, a melter gun and a plasma gun, a melter gun and a volley gun, a flamer and a, you know, flamer grenade launcher is not too bad, but, you know, it's all mix and match. And, oh, this squad with 2 flamers has got a flamer and a grenade launcher. It's got a random fucking plasma pistol. It's like, no, stop it. Special. You are taking an elite special squad / army. Make them elite special. Make them elite and special, I should say. So anyway, if that's the one thing you learn from this video, that's great. Thank you for listening. If anyone has got some other loadouts that they have found particularly effective, ones that I wouldn't have thought of, please let me know. And as always, thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.